Hi guys, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to explain the part 2 in the 4th unit, which is context. I explained you clearly about the processes, which is part 1. Now let's start part 2, which is context. So what is context? So general meaning, what is a context? It's like a information, it's like a passage. So information which is there. So we'll say like what is the context in the given passage, means what is the information, the main aim of the information, what is the main objective. So in this way we can say yes or no. Context is nothing but some passage simply. So here, what is the syntax of context? They are asking syntax, semantic of context. So, which I explained you before only about the syntax and semantics. Syntax is nothing but the rules which we have to follow. Semantics is nothing but the meaning of a particular information. Yes or no? So now let's understand what is a syntax, means what is a rule for the context, and what is the correct meaning of the context in the KRR subject. Okay, let's understand. Look at here. In knowledge representation, contexts play a scientific role in organizing and structuring the information, means what to organize in a correct specific way and structuring in a structured format, structured manner. So the information which is there, we have to arrange the information in the structured and organized way, allowing for the representing of knowledge in different context. Yes or no? Or perspectives, means we have to represent the information which we have organized in a different context itself. So look at here, allowing for the representation of knowledge. What is the knowledge? It's like a information. We have to represent the information in a different context. So take an example as like animal. So we will be having some information, some context about the animal. And one more, let's take the fruits. So for the fruits, we'll be having the relevant content. Yes or no? So we'll be representing the information which is really related to the animal in one context, and the information which related to the fruits in the one context. So depending upon the context, we'll be dividing that into the different ways. We'll be organizing into different ways, or we'll be structuring into the different ways according to the scenario. Yes or no? So suppose let's take this example only. This is a subject of KRR. So I organize this KRR subject in one background. Next, even I will be explaining the Python also parallelly. So I will be keeping the Python context in one side. Yes or no? So that you can easily identify the subjects which you want to refer. If you want to refer the Python, you can go to the playlist and see all the Python videos. If you want to refer to the KRR subject, you can go to the KRR playlist and you can watch the KRR subject. So it is helpful for you. So if you write the name of the context, so you can identify the particular field. No need to waste the time in searching each and every video. Yes or no? So by specifying the name of the context, and to divide this context into the different categories according to their situation, according to their perspective, we can identify easily which context is belongs to which thing. Okay, I think you got a clarity how to represent the knowledge according to their context. So this is the thing. Changing context involves from one context to another context, which may be in the form of a syntax or semantics, means what the context which is there in that will be having the syntax, means some rules which we have to follow, and semantics some meaning. So to keep the information, we'll be having some particular meaning. As so, that is known as a semantics. So for one context, mainly these two categories are involved, which is syntax, and one more thing is semantics. As so, these two things are very important. So why this context is used? To represent the information, to represent the knowledge, to represent the information which we have. To represent this thing, we'll be using the context. Yes or no? Next, to change the context from one context to another context, which is this. If we want to change this context to another context, Then we'll be using the syntax and semantics. At that time, the syntax semantics will be helpful when we want to change from one context to another context. At that time, the syntax and semantics will be very helpful to transfer. Okay, now let's understand what is the syntax of the context and what is the semantics of the context. I think you understood why we have to learn the syntax and semantics of the context, because to transfer from information from one context to another context, this both things will be helpful. Okay, now let's understand first what is the syntax of the context. Look at here. The syntax of context refer to how contexts are defined. So how the context is defined and represented within the knowledge representation framework. So mainly it will be considering how the context is defined and how we'll be representing the information. These two things they will be looking. So first thing, how the context is defined and how will be representing the information, particular information which is there in the context. And this syntax varies depending upon the formalism or model being used. So yes or no, depending upon their particular model, the syntax will be differ. Okay, for every context will not have same syntax. No, for a different context will be having a different syntax. So we cannot merge all at a time. Yes or no? So for the different models will be having a different syntax. So syntax will be not same for all the models. It will be varying from model to model. Mainly we'll be using the syntax for the of the context to refer the context definition and to represent the knowledge. Yes, so now these two things will be using with the syntax. Now let's see some elements in the syntax of context. So context identification. So what is the context identification? Means what, how to identify a particular context itself. Each context is typically identified or named to distinguish it from other context. Means what they are saying. So to identify a particular context is uh, like particular context belongs to this category or particular context belongs to other category. How we can identify? By giving some name to that context? No, suppose take this example only. So I am explaining both the subjects parallelly, which is KRR and the Python. So for you it will be confusion to see where is the Python related videos and where is the KRR subject related videos. So I made a playlist so that you can refer according to your requirement. So by keeping the name, by identifying that name, you can go through the relevant videos. Yes or no? So we have to specify that with a identified name so that you can easily see the particular context which you want without wasting any time. Yes or no? So we have to keep some name so that we can identify the particular context easily. Okay, this identification can be achieved through, so we can use some labels or the symbols or the identifiers to identify the particular context which we are having. Next one is contextual boundaries. What is the contextual boundaries? Let's see. Context often have well-defined boundaries itself. So it will be having a well-defined boundaries. Means what? What is a boundary mean thing? So it's like a scope of the context. So boundary is nothing but the scope. What is the main scope of the context? What is the main scope of the particular paragraph which is there? So that is considered as a boundary. These boundaries may be explicit or implicit. So it can be explicit or it can be the implicit also, indicating the extent to which knowledge within the context is applicable. Means which knowledge, like which information is appropriate to the particular context. As on which appropriate thing, which is the main scope of this. Okay, that is known as a boundary. Till which extent we have to go, till which boundary we have to see the information in the particular context. So that is known as a contextual boundary. It's like a main scope of the information which is there. Next one is contextual relationships. So what is the contextual relationship? So relationship between context can be represented to capture dependencies, hierarchicals or association between the different context. Means there will be some relationship between the one context to the another context. That context can be differ with the dependencies or hierarchy, or it can be the some association. So what is the relation between the two contexts? So that is known as a contextual relationship. Okay, these relationship may include what it can be included sub context within a large context. So within the large context will be taking the sub context. Yes or no? Next, next, or we can say cross reference means what shared in information, or it can be the knowledge between the context. So this is known as a contextual relationship. So what is a context identification? So we have to give some specified names to identify the particular context is there or not. So to identify the particular context easily, we have to specify with the name. What is the contextual boundary? What is the main scope, at which extent we have to go, and that is known as a contextual boundary. Next, contextual relationship means what is the relation between the two contexts? So that is known as a contextual relationship. Next, I think this is the syntax of the context. I think you understood about the syntax. What is the syntax for the context? You have, if they ask in the examination, you have to write this thing, this all till here you have to mention it. Now let's understand what is the semantics of context. Next one is semantics of context. The semantics of context is nothing but the meaning. Yes or no? What is the semantics? It's nothing but the meaning or interpretation of context within the knowledge which we have represented. Means it's like a main meaning. What is the meaning of the knowledge which we have represented? This involves understanding how knowledge is organized, assigned, and reasoned about within a different context. Means what? So it mainly says about the what is the meaning of the particular information which is there in the context itself. Now let's see some key aspects. Scope of context, which I explained you before only. Each context has a specific scope. What is the main scope? What is the scope? Is nothing but it's like a domain. What is the main objective of the particular context? It's like a domain or scope, or we can say what is the specific thing is there in the context. Okay, next, defining the context relevance and specification. What is the relevant data? What is the main objective of the context? So that all comes under the scope. Knowledge within a context is considered relevant only within the defined scope. Means we have to take only the relevant and significant data. Okay, that is known as a scope of context, means only the relevant data. Next, contextual independence. What is the contextual independence? Contexts are often treated as independent unit. Means what? Every context is independent to one another. Yes or no? So let's take two examples only, which is a Python is one context and KRR subject is one context. There is no dependency between the both the subjects. Each subject is independent to one another. Yes or no? That is a coding subject, it is a theory subject. So these both are different. We cannot interlink both. So they are saying that only. So each context will be independent. There will be no interrelation between each other. Okay, with knowledge within the context, the knowledge which is there in the particular context is independent on other context which is there in the information. So this information and that information is not same. Okay, from the knowledge in the other context. Okay, the information which is there in this context is differ from the other context. Next, this independence allow for modelization, encapsulation of knowledge. Okay, next, and managing and reasoning. Okay, I think you understood. Next, contextual inheritance. So about this inheritance, I explained you in my Python video. If you are not aware about coding subjects, no problem, I will be explaining you. Inheritance is nothing but like we'll be having a two classes like parent and the child. So where we'll be having some properties, we'll be taking some properties in from the parent to the child. Means what? Means so we'll be having some behavior, some characteristics from our parents to students. Means the kids which, okay, yes or no? Yes or no? So the properties and the behaviors and characteristics of parents will be inherited to the children. Yes or no? But children's properties and the behavior cannot be inherited to the parent, but parent properties will be transferred to the children. Yes or no? That is inherited, means their properties are again used in the children. Okay, their properties will be taken to the children. I think you are getting the connection. Yes or no? So this is what is the contextual inheritance. Inheritance means that the thing where we'll be taking the properties from the parent to child. Yeah. Inheritance mechanism may exist between context, means what, their parent and the child. So here we have a concept of context, means it is interdependent between the two context. As so no, so where the context, the take the example of A context and the B context. So what are the properties and what are the information, what is the main scope of the thing is there in the context A will be there in the context B. That is known as the contextual inheritance, allowing knowledge from high level context to the inherited to the low level context. The information which is there in the high level context will be inherited to the low level context. Yes or no? So by this what we can use the reuse. Okay, no need to write entire code again, we can use the same context over here. No need to write entire information again and again. Yes or no? This is a thing which we can have the beauty of this inheritance. Okay, so no need to write the entire information again, we can just have the context name or identifier and we can use the thing. No need to write again whole information which is there in that. Okay, next, contextual constraints. What is a constraints? Constraints is nothing but the some condition. Yes or no? It's like a condition which will be specifying some conditions or the rules according to the context which we have to follow. Why we have to specify some conditions? Because to ensure the consistency and integrity of the context too. So to be in a consistent format, to be in a correct format, we have to follow some specified conditions. Okay, these are some key aspects in the semantic of context. Scope of the context. What is the scope? It's like a main domain. What is the main objective in the particular context? Contextual independence means there will be some independency between the one context to the other context. Contextual inheritance means the information which we have in the one context will be taken to the other context. What is the use of this inheritance? Means the reuse of information. So no need to use reuse again and again, just we can take the identifier and we can use in the other context. So what is the contextual constraints? Means we will be specifying some conditions to ensure the consistency of the context, to be correct nature, to be in a consistent format, we'll be specifying some conditions. So these are the semantics of constants, semantics of context and syntax of construct. So these are the syntax and semantics of context. Okay, I think you understood. So you have to remember this identities. So if you remember this identities, you can write the information by your own. Okay, remember this identities. And that's it for this video. It is as simple it is. Okay, syntax and semantics, if you know the basic information, you can write by your own. Okay, that's it for this video, and thanks for watching. Let's meet in next video.